And hello, welcome to this very special episode of Solo Playthroughs. I got a different format going on today because I did something special last week. I was at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia. Yes, I was. I am from Philadelphia, for some of you who may not know that yet. So going to PAX Unplugged is a joy for me. I don't have to worry about the travel except for like a 30-minute walk or a 10-minute Uber, and it is fantastic. I first went to PAX Unplugged back in 2018, and one of the best parts about PAX Unplugged is that it normally falls about my birthday weekend or the weekend after, which is pretty freaking awesome. My 40th birthday I spent at PAX Unplugged in 2019. Had a freaking blast, came home, my wife had a party for me. So I didn't go all day to PAX, but came back and had a beautiful, beautiful time. And Mrs. Playthroughs made sure that was an amazing weekend for me. So really have some fond memories of PAX over the years. And one of the coolest things about this year was that this was the first year I went as an official content creator. Oh, that is right. Look at that beautiful yellow stripe on the bottom of that badge. I have attained something, people. I don't know. To be honest, it was weird walking around PAX with that little yellow stripe on. I felt like I was campaigning for something, but not sure what. Just made a bunch of connections, though, met a bunch of cool people. I'm going to just talk a little bit freestyle today about my experience at PAX. If you have been to a board game convention, you know what it's like. That's great. If you have not, hopefully this will encourage you to go to one in the future. They are very, very cool experiences. I use board game conventions as a really good way to not only learn about what's coming up, but to play a lot of games that I've heard about for years and just have a chance to play them. There's usually a really nice free play area, at least at PAX Unplugged there is, and I really take advantage of that. And it's nice for me because I have some friends that go with me, so I'm always able to play some games on each day of the convention. The convention is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. To talk about everything that happened in those 3 days for me, I'm going to break this video into 4 exciting parts. First, we're going to talk about, well, what was my haul, right? A lot of people talk about their haul from conventions, and you see these crazy stacks of games. That wasn't me. I definitely picked up some games, though, that I'm pretty excited about. So I will talk about that. I'm going to talk about people I met, some really fun interactions with some other people in the content creation community, some publishers and things like that. Very, very cool stuff. I am going to talk about things that I'm excited about coming up, some things that caught my eye, and maybe some things I'm like a little bit iffy about. Not going to spend a whole lot of time there. There's definitely other channels that will focus more on like what to expect in 2022 and beyond. That's not totally my thing, but there were 3 things that caught my eye and made me a little bit more excited about things I might have already been excited about. A little bit of a spoiler alert there. And then finally, I will spend some time talking about the games I played and a quick first take. I only played each game once. Really glad to check off some boxes, and we will talk about that too. So let's get to the content. First, what was my haul? This is my picture. That's it. So I jumped in the Board Game Barrage math trade. For those of you who don't know, a math trade is basically when you put a bunch of games up that you're looking to trade or get rid of that you might still like them, but you're not playing them and you want to get something new. So you put them all in a list and you offer them and say, hey, what would you accept in return from other people who are also in the same trade? You can also put monetary values. Say, look, I will take this much money for this game, or I will spend this much money for that game if you want to. You don't have to. I ended up doing that. I thought I would get rid of a few games. I wasn't offering that many. I only ended up getting rid of 1. Now, how do you know what you get rid of? Well, you put all of this into a computer, and the computer determines how to maximize the number of trades. And sometimes that might be, hey, I'm going to trade this game to Mr. B over here. Mr. B will trade me a game in reverse. Sometimes. Normally, it's much more convoluted. Where I'm going to give a trade to Mr. B. Mr. B is going to give a trade to Mr. C. Mr. C is going to give something to Mr. D. Mr. D is going to give something to Mr. E, so forth and so on. And there might be Mr. K is going to come back and complete that trade loop. And there usually is either an exchange of money at some point in that loop, or it could just be all games. So I ended up getting rid of 1 game. I'm not going to say what, for out of respect for what the game is. In my efforts to get rid of some games in my collection, I ended up positive 3. It's my birthday weekend, so whatever. Happy birthday to me. I wanted all these games. I'm excited with what I got. You will see Baseball 2045 on there. Huge baseball fan. At least I was back in the day. My Orioles got to do some things to get me back into watching that so much. Board games unsurprisingly, are drawing more of my attention these days. But happy to see what this game is about. I did pick up Brass Birmingham. I think my group will really like it. And I've heard so many good things about the Brass series. Have not played Lancashire or Birmingham yet. So I'm really excited to get this to the table. I picked up Root. Now, Root has a little bit of an asterisk on it. In the match trade, I picked up Root and the River Folk expansion, which I'm super excited about, but I understood that, hey, the Atoma and the River Folk expansion isn't that great. You really need clockwork. So I went over to the leader booth, and the wonderful sales rep at the leader booth found out who I was, found out about my channel, and he was like, well, here you go. So the picture of the clockwork expansion and the picture I had up on the screen not too long ago, well, that is thanks to Leader Games, and I do appreciate that. So you can expect some Root content early next year. Hopefully that will make some of you super excited. I'm really excited to dig into that. And my final haul is the game that I'm most excited about personally at this point is Champions of Hara. I've heard it's Mage Knight Light. I've already had this on the table. I really was that excited to play it and learn it. It does have a little bit of Mage Knight, a little bit of City of Kings, a whole lot of something else. It's great. The artwork's great. The table presence is great. I'm really, really excited to keep digging into that game, and I'm excited to get that on the channel sooner rather than later. So probably sometime January, February, you can expect to see my first Champions of Hara. So that was my haul. I did not buy anything at any of the various vendors. I was definitely tempted, but I'm at that place in my collection where I need to be very careful about my choices. This basement is pretty full, if you can't tell from this stack of things behind me. And I already know what Kickstarters I have coming next year. So yeah, next match trade, hopefully I am getting rid of more games than I'm getting. But that did not happen this time. And again, I'm not that upset about that. Now, as far as match trades, I should mention that the match trade at PAX was run by Board Game Barrage. So you might want to look into them. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter. They're pretty easy to find in the board game world. They run match trades all the time. The benefit of doing the match trade at PAX was that you did not have to worry about shipping because everyone just handed the games to each other or the money to each other or Venmoed the money to each other right at the convention. So you're saving money on the games. You're getting better trade value for your games. You don't have to worry about the shipping. If anyone's tried to get rid of games before, shipping can be expensive. So it's always nice to do a math trade in person. This was my first math trade. It was something I was very interested in for a couple of years now. And to finally wanted to do it in person, it worked off really well. And for anyone who's hesitant, I'll tell you what, there were hundreds of trades, and every single one seemed like it was a fill without a hitch. So all these complicated loops, it's like, oh, you worry you might get screwed. It really, really does not seem to be a common thing in the match trade world. And it's definitely something I will be doing more of in the future. I can almost guarantee you that. It's a great way to get some new games and get rid of some games that you're just kind of done with for whatever reason. So Board Game Barrage, thank you to them for organizing the PAX Unplugged math trade. And you might want to check them out to see if there's a match trade that you can get involved with. That's probably a little bit more for my viewers in the United States. Sorry about that for anyone who is not, but I'm sure that match trades are common even in the UK and whatnot, that you might want to find one local to you that you can take part in. So that is my haul. Again, it was one match trade. Really like how that came out, and I think you'll like how it came out too next year when I start getting some Champions of Hara and some Root and some Baseball 2045 on the channel to go along with everything else. So let's move on. Who I met? Well, it's crazy. I mean, you're walking around and you just see people that you recognize in the industry left and right. Isaac Childress was manning the Frosthaven booth, Gloomhaven, Cephalofair Games booth to be more general. I mean, Eric Lang was there, a bunch of other designers. You definitely met some more industry people that I've interacted with on Twitter, from Thunderburst Games. That comes to mind for sure, from Pandasaurus Games. People that you will likely know is Our Family Plays Games was there. They actually led a panel with Cephalofair Games. Our Family Plays Games is a very fun, energetic channel. Definitely recommend you checking them out. They do a lot of board game reviews for family weight games, but they'll do other kinds of games as well, but a lot of family weight stuff on there, which is really, really cool. The Miskatonic University Radio, I will talk about them in a minute. They did a Arkham event, so I was excited to meet Ben from Miskatonic University Radio. For those who don't know, they are an Arkham LCG podcast, and I think they do some other kind of content as well, so that was cool. Before You Play, Monique and Naveen, they are affiliated with Watch It Played. these days. So they're hanging out with Rodney Smith a lot, and he's one of the most beloved people in the industry, right? But it was really cool to meet them. Had a nice little conversation there. Among Dice Tower contributors, I met Crystal. If you don't know who she is, you might want to check her stuff out. She's pretty easy to find on Twitter. Crystal and I had a fun little conversation. She's coming from Vegas, actually lived in Vegas for a summer back in the day, previous life, but had some fun times catching up there. And then Suzanne from the Dice Tower, she's also working with Restoration Games a lot. She's fantastic, one of the best people in the industry, very, very nice, and had a really wonderful conversation with her. Other than that, solo gamers will love to know I hung out in the Chip Theory Games booth for a bit, surrounded by giant posters of all your favorite gear locks. It was a pretty cool setup they had going on there. Definitely was a very popular booth the entire weekend. So hopefully that was a really good experience for everyone from Chip Theory Games. Really had a good time just kind of meeting some of the people behind the scenes. Unfortunately, Adam, Josh, and Josh, well, they are a little busy right now. As we all know from the 2 Kickstarters and the Game Found campaign, they're in the middle of running right now. So they had other things to do that did not involve getting a plane trip over to Philadelphia. But their staff were wonderful and super friendly, and it was really fun to meet some people there. And then finally, I'll tell you what, the Brothers Murph, man, I don't even know their names. I talked to Mike. I was like, dude, I just know you as the Brothers Murph. So I'm sorry, I'm that jerk. But Mike and Nick both, I mean, what you see is what you get. They are that energetic in person, and they are that friendly, and it was hilarious hearing them talk about their planning for their marathon. For those who do not know, they are trying to do all of Gloomhaven in a week. So definitely check out their content and see what they're up to and see if they can pull that off, because holy cow, that is a long campaign to try to do in a week. I know they're going to be on Twitch live streaming like 2 hours a day, I think, so people can kind of check in on their progress. But they have like everything mapped out. They have all their tiles like taped off on the table to try to really reduce the amount of setup. You might remember last year the Brothers Murph did a marathon where they did all of the games in their collection in a week. It was like 300 games. And it was absolutely insane. And Nick told me they spent probably about 23 and a half hours just on setup and takedown by their calculation. So they're really trying to learn from that to be a lot more efficient and just kind of sticking with Gloomhaven, but having everything laid out. Because as we all know, setting up for those various scenarios can be quite the challenge with Gloomhaven, because those tiles, man, I'll tell you what, lot of terrain tiles. But good luck to them. That is the Who I Met section. And what do I have next? Well, games that caught my eye that I am intrigued by. So look, there were 3 of them that caught my eye. 2 of them I already knew about going in and already was interested in. I'm just leaving the convention more interested in than I was. And one is kind of new to me, and I'm interested in with a little bit of a caveat. So let's start with the 2 that I already knew about. One is Van Ryder's Games and Final Girl. Now, Final Girl has been blowing up my timeline. I don't know about anybody else, but if you've been in the solo Facebook group or if you follow solo-focused gaming people on Twitter, I am sure pictures of Final Girl have hit your timeline in recent weeks. The Kickstarters are filled. People are loving this game. Now it's going to be even doubled down because I understand that it just fulfilled over in the UK as well. So I think there's a whole nother round of hype about Final Girl. Final Girl takes the hostage negotiator system. That is not a game I've ever played. And from what I understand, it improves upon that system and adds a different theme altogether. And people love their horror genre. So people are really, really digging this game. So that is a game I am very interested in as far as getting on the channel in the future. So stay tuned about that. Another game that made me even more excited about it than I was going into the convention, I'll tell you what, Frosthaven was legit. It was an amazing gaming experience, and I will talk more about that when I talk about the games that I played. So I'm going to save my comments on it, but woo, like my excitement for Frosthaven is at an all-time high for a very good reason, and that's very cool. And then finally, I learned about Prospero Hall's Dinosaur World, The Legacy of Isla Neblar. I'm a child of the 80s, man. Like, well, I was born in 79, but, you know, mostly a child of the 80s. So you say Jurassic Park, woo, like, I'm interested. I'm really interested. I don't own Dinosaur Island. I really like it. This has the IP. I mean, this is all of Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, Michael Crichton's creation come to life. And it is a legacy game. It looks awesome. It was strange, though, because I talked to the guy at the booth, and I was like, so is it soloable? And he says, no. I'm like, it's cooperative, right? He said, yes. I'm like, wait, so can you play multi-handed solo? He's like, well, you could. It would just take you a long time. So I'm not sure how to take that as a solo gamer. It could just be Prospero Hall just isn't really in on the solo thing yet. I don't know what to take of that. I mean, it seems weird to me that as of the latest that I checked, which was like a few minutes ago, Dinosaur World from Prospero Hall is still being advertised as a 2 to 4 player game, or maybe it's 2 to 5. I'm pretty sure it's 2 to 4. But if it's a cooperative game and you can play it multi-handed, I mean, it's been common parlance in the industry for a while now that you just say, hey, it's 1 to 4. Even if you're playing a solo means you have to play it multi-handed. So the fact that Prospero Hall isn't kind of in with that lingo right now, I feel like they're going to cost themselves some buyers on that Kickstarter if they put that out there as a 2 to 4 player game. And they're kind of missing the boat on that a little bit, but what the heck do I know? So I assumed that it was just a sales guy in Prospero Hall, and Prospero Hall doesn't do solo games, and maybe they're going to be a little slow to realize that, no, it actually could be played solo and can be indeed called a solo game. You know, just maybe not a true solo game. As a total aside, I've seen a number of things come out about how like true solo is a terrible phrase because it makes non-true soloers feel worse. Dude, it's just communicating a phrase. Seriously, play as many as you want. I don't care. You play 17 characters for all I care. I prefer true solo, but I don't think I'm better. I don't know how else to use language. All right, with that said, I'm off my soapbox. Back to the topic at hand. Stay focused, Greg. Dinosaur World is not playable true solo. It seems like it's probably going to be soloable. The Kickstarter is going to be coming out in 2022. It looks pretty awesome. If it's not soloable, I'm still sure one of my friends who's a bigger Jurassic Park nut than me is probably going to get it, and I'm going to play it at some point anyway. But put that on your radar if it's not already on your radar. It looks like it could be a pretty cool deal, especially if you love the IP. So those are the 3 games I'm excited about. So what the heck did I play in these 3 days of gaming extravagance in Philadelphia? Well, I'm glad you asked. On Friday, I was there with my friend Steve, and we ended up playing 2 games and then just had to call it early night for a couple of reasons. But we played Flamme Rouge, I think. Flamme Rouge? I don't know. My French is terrible, guys. I'm really sorry. Flamme Rouge is a true racing game. It is a cyclist theme. You can play it with up to 4 players, I think, maybe more. And you basically have 2 racers, and it uses the ideas of drafting, and not in the Seven Wonders sense, more actual cyclist drafting off of each other to get speed and to try to conserve energy until late pushes. It has a really cool deck mechanic. Very, very simple game. Very, very family friendly. Really glad I played it. It was something I had heard about for a while, and Steve and I wanted to start off with something a little bit lighter. That was fun. Then we played Champions of Midgard. So I bought Champions of Hara, but I played at the convention at least Champions of Midgard. Champions of Midgard was very cool. As I've said before on the channel, and I'm going to say it again, I don't know, Sunday, I'm not a huge worker placement guy, but worker placement is fun, and I like it a lot more competitive than I do in most solo situations. But Champions of Midgard really nailed the theme for me, and I just liked the balance that was there between the different monster types you could fight against, or you had the monsters and the troll. I liked the way that it seemed really easy to get the resources you need to do some pretty cool things. I liked the dice rolling mechanic. There was a lot about Midgard that really spoke to me, and probably the most I ever liked a worker placement game after one play. Would that continue if I had more opportunities to continue to play it? I don't know. I did end up losing to Steve. Steve was able to knock off a few more monsters there in that last round, and I was focusing on some other point things that just weren't as efficient as what he was able to pull off. But really liked the game, liked the slight asymmetric nature of the leaders, and probably one of the highlights for me from the free play time that I spent in the convention. So Champions of Midgard, really impressed with that one. Really glad I finally got a play of it under my belt. And that was it for Friday. So Saturday went back, got there at 10:30 a.m. Well, got to the convention hall at 10:30. And yeah, there was a wee bit of a line at that time on Saturday morning because there were a couple things hitting up at 10:30. There was a big Frosthaven presentation happening at 10:30. So I feel like everyone was like, we're going to get there at 10:30. And well, yeah, that line took a while. So I didn't actually get in until like 10:40. The line moved pretty quick, fortunately. I cannot explain to you how long this line was and how impressive it is, how quickly it moves. So we did get in. And as I mentioned then before, Michigan University Radio had set up an event for the Arkham LCG, the newest side scenario, Machinations of Time. And I got there with my friend Zach, and we played through that scenario. We played in the past. I played as good old alternate Roland, and Zach had a Jenny Barnes deck, and we had a really good time. I like the scenario. The side scenarios have gotten better and better and better. I do think this one is a little bit of a step down for me from Blob and from Excelsior and from Outer Gods, but I think that just speaks to how much I really love those three side scenarios. But this one was cool. It had some really cool ideas. I really don't want to see Nicholas Tesla in a game ever again, man, or Nikolai Tesla, or whatever the heck his name is. I'm so sick of friggin' seeing Tesla. It's not unique anymore. Just find something else. There's not that many games that have used Tesla, but there's enough. It's too many for me. I'm like, dude, not that interested. I mean, what, you have like Cthulhu Death May Die. You have one that I won't say for spoiler concerns. And now, again, he shows up in Machinations of Time. Whatever, dude. Just find someone else. But it's a cool idea. It really worked well for what it was. I'm glad I got to play it in an epic multiplayer mode. I do think it will have some value playing even solo and just kind of working through each of the scenarios, past, present, and then future in successive plays. I look forward to having that experience once I get it. I have pre-ordered my copy of Machinations of Time. I expect to get it sometime in like March or April. With Fantasy Flight, you never really know these days. I just got Edge of the Earth, so I'm not being greedy. I will get it when I get it. So as long as I got my Edge of the Earth, a happy Arkham player, right? So that was the first thing I did on Saturday. In the free play area after that, Zach and I were joined by Marisa. We ended up playing a game of Puerto Rico to start, and it was a total learning game. Puerto Rico, yes, has some serious problematic things going on with its theme and how it is set up. I understand they are creating a new version of Puerto Rico using the mechanics and trying to, I don't know, get out the slavery. That should be coming next year from what I understand, but who knows? The mechanics were cool. I'm glad to be able to play it. I mean, it was number one on Board Game Geek for a very long time, so it was a game I wanted to at least play once because obviously I came to the industry a little bit later than Puerto Rico's heyday, and I just never really played it. So when we were setting it up, it was funny because a guy came over and said, hey, you're about to start playing. Do you mind if I join in? And I looked at him. I was like, dude, I got to tell you, man, we're all new. This will not be fun for you. And he took that very well. And he was like, okay, thank you for letting me know. And he moved on. It was fun. Zach ended up winning. We had a good time with it, though. You know, do I really care to play it again? Probably not. I felt the end was really abrupt. Like you kind of knew it was coming, but it was still felt abrupt. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that really is the end. And I felt there weren't as many points opportunities as you get in a lot of games, which in some ways I'm sure makes it a much tighter game and makes your decisions that much richer as you know what you're doing. We were all just learning, but it felt weird. It's like, oh, I have all this extra stuff. I get no points for any of it. Okay, I feel like more modern games have obviously gone away from that a little bit. And it's like, well, at least if you have 20 money left, we'll divide it by 3 or divide it by 5 and you get that many points. I mean, Puerto Rico was like, no, you got no points for any of that. You need to get the points during the game, except for those bigger tiles, and those give you mondo points. And that's really where Zach was able to pull pretty far ahead in the end game scoring. So I liked it. Glad I played it. Glad I kind of know what it was about. I can see why people would love it. I can see also why one of the problems with the game is that if you're playing with experienced players, there really are right and wrong plays. I can see how that system kind of lends itself to that even after one play. So being someone that doesn't know the right plays, again, I don't really know if I want to invest so much time to learn the right plays, but we'll see how this new version is when it comes out, if it comes out, assuming it comes out. And that made for a good first game between Zach, Marisa, and I. We then moved on to a game of Machi Koro, other end of the spectrum, totally family weight game. Had some fun with it. Rolled like absolute garbage. Did not win that either. But okay, now we know what Machi Koro is about. Moving on from Machi Koro, we ended the day with Modern Art, and that game did impress me. It caught my attention. I rarely buy games that I test out at conventions. I have made exceptions. I did buy a copy of Galaxy Trucker after having a blast with it at PAX Unplugged 2 years ago. But fortunately, this time, I don't need to buy Modern Art because Zach already bought it. So I'm good there. Modern Art was very cool. I am not an auction mechanic guy. I cannot stand Power Grid because I hate the auction mechanic. It just doesn't work for me. The auctions just drag, and by the 30th auction of a game, you have that one guy who's kind of checking out, and you're like, dude, you have to bid. You want to know? Okay. I like the auctions in Modern Art. I like that there was a wide variety of them, and I thought the game moved at a really nice clip because of that. And I thought the strategy of how you can offer certain things for auction was really cool, and the art was very interesting. So it was a cool experience and a nice way to end Saturday with the game of Modern Art. It doesn't hurt that I ended up pulling out the win. But the crazy thing was the whole time I thought I was getting crushed because I just ended up selling stuff for a lot and I wasn't buying much. I wasn't getting a lot of the bonuses at the end of the rounds, but I just kept getting so much money for what I was selling. It just ended up that I edged out both Marisa and Zach with that strategy, even though I had less paintings in the end. But it was a very cool game. I could see myself enjoying that multiple plays. And I could see that even shining a lot more with 4 or 5 players as opposed to just 3 that we had. So cool game. Definitely recommend checking out Modern Art. On Sunday, I got to PAX and I played 3 more games to end the week. The free play area closes at 6 on Sunday, so you got to get them in early. I got there at 11 o'clock, and my friend Brian and 2 of his friends who I met for the first time, we had signed ourselves up for a 4-player game of Frosthaven. And wow, like I was really excited for Frosthaven. I think it's so easy to forget that Gloomhaven was really Isaac Childress's first game. I mean, I'm sure he designed other things, but as far as like games that hit the market, it was Gloomhaven. And if you look at what happened in Jaws of the Lion, to me at least, I feel like the system matured. Isaac's ability to integrate narrative into his design matured. His ability to create a wide variety in not only the classes, because there was a huge variety in Gloomhaven. I get that. But I felt the 4 classes in Jaws of the Lion were all super interesting. And I felt like the variety in scenarios is what was more impressive to me, in that it wasn't as samey as Gloomhaven got. It was like, oh, kill all enemies again, like whatever. The scenarios got more interesting. The mechanics on what was going on between you interacting with the board became really interesting. And I thought, based on Jaws, that Frosthaven was going to be awesome. And then you look at all the guest designers and everything. I'm super excited for Frosthaven. Well, my excitement level almost doubled after playing a demo scenario at PAX Unplugged. The classes are awesome. They're all interesting. These are the starter classes. I played as the Bone something, the Bone Shaper, Bone Destroyer, whatever. The summons are so much better. Some of the tweaks to the rules were just really nice. The artwork is great. I love the iconography now. I think the cards are so much simpler to see what's going on at a glance than the one Frosthaven where you're reading a lot more, where it's easy to miss something here or there. Everything is just totally laid out. The exclamation points to say, no, this is mandatory. Don't forget to do this. So many little things like that make the user experience of Frosthaven superb. And it didn't hurt that we were playing on a gorgeous layout of terrain that was made by some dude. I guess all he does full time is make terrain. I really wish I grabbed the car because I'd love to plug his stuff. He was absolutely fantastic. And we had a great time playing the demo scenario. Both of them went pretty easily, but we are all experienced Gloomhaven players. And I'm assuming it was one of the early scenarios in Frosthaven. But super excited for that game now more than ever, and just cannot wait till that huge box arrives. If you haven't heard already, mostly the box of Frosthaven is 2 inches taller than the Gloomhaven box with the same other dimensions. It's going to be insane, the content in that game. And if you're like me, if you hate the summons in Gloomhaven and that have those little stupid colored discs all the summons now have their own little standees. It's so much smoother. All of it is so much smarter in how it just presented from the very first time I played one scenario. So expecting that. And I think there's no reason that that's not going to carry out through the entire campaign. So be excited about Frosthaven if you already are. And if you're not, that's fine. I know I'm going to get one comment on this video talking to me about how much Gloomhaven is a terrible game, really, and blah, blah, blah. And I get it, dude. Whatever. That's totally fine. It's number one on BGG for a reason. Is it my number one personally? Not even close. But I get why people love that game. And I'm really excited about Frosthaven because I think it's going to be just a much better version of Gloomhaven. Because I already think Jaws of the Lion is a much better version of Gloomhaven. So that's just me. And I think Frosthaven is going to be better than Jaws of the Lion for sure from what I've seen already. So moving on from that, I played a game of Pulsar 2849. That game was nuts. I was really impressed with that one. The different options to chase points, like what a super interesting game that had me thinking all the way through. I stumbled into some really cool point combos and was able to beat Brian pretty emphatically in a 2-player game. I could see that game getting really interesting in 3 or 4 players too, but just had a blast with that one. And I can see why some people are pretty high in it. I think that's one of Broken Meeple's favorites for a good reason. I'm really glad I got that to the table and kind of saw what that was all about in person. And then we ended the weekend with a game of Underwater Cities. And Underwater Cities is okay. I don't know. It's fine. I mean, I see why people compare it to Terraforming Mars. And in fairness, I'm kind of sick of Terraforming Mars just a little bit. So that comparison didn't help its cause. But it's also super different than Terraforming Mars because it's worker placement along with some things that feel very Terraforming Mars-y, like the production phases that happen 3 times. I went super serious on production, had some cool things happening. I never was able to put together a sequence where I was able to get the cards that I wanted to really score a lot of points. So that was a flaw in my game, being a first-time player of the game, and Brian had played a bunch before, so he was able to really take advantage of that and ended up with 3 of those cards. I probably could have gotten one at the end, but I messed up something in my head and thought I had to do something else to do this other thing. But there's a lot going on in that game. I find the production part of it a little clunky, but again, it was like the first time I was playing, but it was like really you have to look at all these like little pieces everywhere and determine what you're supposed to get from this chart. You know, I'd have to play it again. It was definitely a game I've looked at in the past and thought about purchasing and was like, again, not the kind of games that have really lasted with me for the long haul. But I'm glad I got one play of it in. I understand there's an expansion that's supposed to make it a lot better. So I'll have to look into that in the future and maybe play it 2 or 3 more times before I really decide like how I feel about it. But it's fine. I understand why people might love it. If you love Terraforming Mars, if you love those engine building, resource production-y kind of games that rely on a victory point mechanic to determine winner, and yeah, great. It's got a lot for you there. And, you know, that's fine. So ended on not a dud, just ended on a game that was like, yeah, this really isn't for me. I'd play it again. I'd play all 9 of those games again, easy. Machi Koro would probably be the one I would be least excited to play again. At least Underwater Cities, I'm excited to have an opportunity to play it one more time now that I've learned, you know, the hard way, like, oh, you really probably should lock up one of those cards. There was definitely an opportunity or two that I had early where I could have just taken a card because I didn't really have much better to do. And what I did was fine, but it wasn't, you know, going to really work toward getting me the points that I was going to want later, right? So I do question why the freaking worker placement tiles, like what are those? If someone knows what the heck those are, I'd really love to know because they didn't look like workers. They didn't look like anything. There's like these, here, have these cardboard rectangles with a color on it and put that down. Like, what am I doing? Like, why is this a worker? I mean, I guess it's more interesting than just having the standard meeple. I mean, we all have enough meeples in our lives probably, but it was a little strange, not going to lie. But cool game. Just probably not for me in the end. I definitely not much more excited about Pulsar 2849, as you could probably tell. And the highlight for Sunday was clearly Frosthaven. So that's it. That's my wrap up of PAX. I just wanted to get out more of like a vlog, like me talking to a camera, letting you know what's going on, getting PAX on people's radars. PAX, I believe, is the third largest board game convention in the States. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're in the Northeast especially, it's easy to get to Philadelphia, and it's something I would highly recommend checking out in the future. I think it was like $90 for a full weekend. PAX was gracious enough to give me a free pass as a content creator, and I really appreciate that from them. I think there were like 107 of us that they gave free passes to. So a lot of content creators there, but lots of everyone there. If you've never been to a board game convention, when I say there is a sea of board gamers, I mean there is a sea of board gamers. You just look and table after table after table of people playing board games. If you are concerned about COVID for obvious reasons, everyone at PAX was vaccinated. It was a requirement of going to this year's convention, and there was a very strict mask compliance at the convention that was adhered to, and they had people walking around with extra masks if you needed it. And I think it was a super responsible way to have a convention in the times that we're currently living in. It was really nice to get back to a convention after they had to cancel last year's. So I'm hoping to get to other conventions that are not PAX next year. So we'll see how the global situation is. But the big ones that should be on your radar, Gen Con, Origins, Essen or Spiel, that's over in Germany. And then PAX is a huge one. There's also Board Game Geek has a convention, and then there's the Dice Tower West and Dice Tower East. There's a ton of them. PAX is my hometown convention, so it is the one I get the most jazzed for sure. It is really nice to be able to walk to a building that is loaded with board games. Like, that makes me happy, just the thought of it, even now after being there for 3 days, despite being exhausted by the end, for sure. There was a lot of gaming, and I was coming off a birthday trip with Mrs. Playthroughs, as you might have seen my last community post. So not a lot of sleep for me over the course of a week, but came home on Sunday. And what do you think I did? Well, yes, I organized my new games, and so therapeutic. Such a nice moment to sit down, get me a little pour of bourbon, and let me make sure I organize this box the way I want it. That will really encourage me to get it to the table even quicker than I might otherwise. So that's that. Hope you all enjoyed this kind of change of pace. Any questions about PAX, any questions about math trades, any questions about anything I mentioned here, different games, thoughts, anything at all. I don't know what you might have questions about. So put them in the comment section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. We have 2 more videos that are going to be coming out in the next week, and that's how we are going to end the year here in Solo Playthroughs. I have an Anachrony playthrough on Sunday. Yes, I just talk about how I don't really love worker placement. Did I love Anachrony? Come and find out on Sunday, kids. That's right. And then we will have another Strength versus Strength Spirit Island playthrough. That's what I'm going to end the year with. That just seems super appropriate. We're opening up the year in January with a game of Maracaibo, so check that out. And we just have tons of stuff planned. If you want to see the exact schedule of what's coming up in Solo Playthroughs Land, there is a link to my Patreon page below. You can go to that link and you will find a public post that I put up every month with a complete schedule of what is coming up in the weeks to come. So that will be there. And of course, while you're there, if you wanted to be a supporter of Solo Playthroughs, you will have various options for that. I always appreciate the support from my patrons, and I always appreciate the support of my non-patrons as well. The likes, the comments, the subscriptions, all that helps as this channel continues to grow and do some cool things and open up some doors for me. And I really appreciate all of it. So I hope everyone is already having a wonderful holiday season. I hope this video was informative and fun for you. And that's it. Until next time, happy gaming.